Hello everyone, my name is Robert Kapka, and for as long as I remember I do work with the energies. My first experience, my first memories of the experiences, crazy experience, were when I was about 5 years old probably. So yeah, I do work with the energies for a long time, and for the last 10, 15 years I've been intensively being looking for the answers. Uh, And one of the main question was where are we coming from and what's the reality like? So about 10 years ago, I went to places. I've been called actually to go to places to get the answers actually, and the call was strong. Like the call was like, "Come to me, or your existence doesn't count. Your existence." So it was a strong call. So I answered the call and I went there. I went to places. And I was always digging the question, who we are, what is the soul, who is the creator of everything like this. We used to ask the questions, what's the God like, or what's the reality looking like. So I was digging and digging and digging, and then I keep asking the questions. So I think it's a main question for all of us, like who we really are, what's the energy behind of consciousness, and who is the creator of it, what's the purpose of it. So I believe this is the first question we would ask, ourselves, when we're entering, the path of self-discovering. So this is as far as I got, I got few answers from the entities. I won't talk about them now. I would focus first on the question, what's the soul, and who created the soul, and what's the purpose of it. So let's begin from the first thing, the soul. The soul is the point of consciousness. It has no body. Soul has no body. It's the point of consciousness in a one-dimensional universe, which starts to create of everything above it. So for this time, let's imagine then we are in the emptiness, which is the source from our point of view. And the very first soul being created, the very first moment as a single point of consciousness within that emptiness. Why the emptiness? Because we don't know what the soul is, and nobody knows what the source is. I'm sorry, the source. So the source is unknown for every living being, because of the simple fact then we are created out of the soul. So we can't really see our creators as we are the creation of its imagination, or its willness. So the very first soul was created, and as I said, it's the one-dimensional point of consciousness. And then here, I want to stop at this point and mention then loads of people having out-of-the-body experience would have that sensation. Then they can see around 360 degrees around, seeing everything clearly. That indicates that then really soul is just a point, just a single point, mathematically speaking, single point of consciousness within the 1D dimension. So at that point, the soul. I won't talk about this, about how the soul perceives the reality. Let's leave it for the next. But let's stick with the soul itself. The soul has been given a lot of time, so to develop itself, to think of it like I am, to develop the sensation of being itself. At some point of that evolution, that soul felt uncomfortable, like it knew everything it's supposed to know about itself at that level of the evolution, and and the soul starts to feel uncomfortable with it, so it started to looking for the expansion, to expand itself. So it did. And by this, it went into the second dimension, as there would be a, let's say, a second soul. So that that will tell us then the 2 points, they can't exist in the one-dimensional dimension. So it created a second dimension, 2D, 2 points existing on in some sort of a space. The space was created out of the source because the soul needed it for its experiencing. Every soul, the purpose of every soul is just to experience and grow and expand and expand and expand. You can imagine the soul, if you imagine the flat water, calm water, and you drop something to the water, then you see the wave around, going around, the round waves going, expanding. That is the soul. Some of the visualization of the soul would be like this. So the soul starts to expanding in the second dimension as it starts to looking for the other things, looking for other possibilities. So at some point, the soul would leave a second dimensional world and would step into the 3D. What makes it, coming to that place? Well, I believe it's just a time and experience. When the soul experiences itself long enough in a one situation, then it starts to feeling like it's a time for evolution. It's a time for growing, for expanding. I know everything I'm supposed to know here, and I'm here like another million or 2 million cycles, and still nothing going on. So it's a time for the next step, and the next step is provided by the source, of course. Well, in this point, actually, the soul creates the next step. That desire, what the soul can feel about the next step, would create some universes, would create some realities, possibilities, which gives the soul the opportunity to enter it and to discover it. And in this case, we're talking about the parts which play ourself, like myself, yourself. And at some point, it decided, it goes step into the third dimensional world as a result of its evolution. And it starts exploring it from the very beginning, from the very first particles of this world, of this universe. What makes our universe? What's the base which gives us, the level, that level that exists? It's the second dimensional existence. Every dimension below our dimension, it's the base to construct, to make another one above it. So yes, our third dimensional world is made of 2D second dimensional creatures or world, whatever it is. And then itself, it's coming as a base plus an extra dimension, which makes us a third dimensional world that creates the 3D. So at the very base, probably, I don't know if we will discover it or not. As deeper we go, then clearer we see. Then down below, there is a still whole universe, and we still couldn't find the smallest possible particle. And now, even physicists, they say string theory, then actually the world doesn't exist as a 3D. It's only an energy, a field which just float around, and it creates, our reality, which basically would be saying, it's a 2D, world. But anyway, some of the souls who are below, I'd say, in the still two-dimensional world, they are the base for the soul which is actually above, and it's about to enter the 3D world. So those on the 2D, they are feeding, they are preparing the body, so to speak, for the 3D soul, which will actually possess that, bodies, and will use those group of the souls on the lower level, two-dimensional level, to control it. It's not to control it. It's it's about the serving. The one below would serve the one above, and it is true. So those souls on the lower level of the experience, they're not worse or better. They are just on the level of the different experiencing. Those souls will serve the soul which enter the third dimension. So the soul at the third dimension could experience this reality. Of course, it doesn't exist, but it doesn't matter for now. Just stay with me. So to speak, remember that our soul, our consciousness it's the 1D consciousness, a point of the consciousness which exists somewhere, in the 1D world, and the rest of it is just getting the tools to experience the other possibilities, 3D world, 4D world, 5, 6, doesn't matter. It's the mechanism is the same. So the soul enters the body, not the body. The soul enters the 3D world, and then it starts experiencing the 3D world. It probably starts on something as small as particles, smallest particles, which grow into the wind, into the solid matter, for example, for like rocks, water. Everything has is conscious. Everything has consciousness. It's different level of existence, it's different level of understanding, but it has a consciousness. It's simply because everything is made of one, the same. It's just a different manner it presents itself that makes a reality different. So our soul starts to experience this world, this universe as a simple bricks of this reality, which gives a base to grow everything around, to exist everything. So at some point, soul has enough of being a rock, of being a water, of being any solid matter in this universe. So it starts expanding itself. It goes into, let's say, a plant. So those souls who were experiencing of being an atoms of water or everything, they're still there, and they provide a construct. They provide a construct which is, so to speak, possessed by the soul, which is on the higher level. So that soul from the higher level of expanding can actually enter it, and through possible senses can experience the world around. In this case, would be like reaction for the light, for the water, for the nutrients. We're talking about simple senses. So at that moment, that 3D soul, which actually is on a little bit higher level than those who are a bit below, that soul experiences the life as a plant. Do you understand that 2D they are based for the 3D simple, then 3D simple are providing a construct for the 3D a little bit more advanced. So 3D more advanced can actually through those ones are lower. It can experience the reality. So we are at the point when the plants are growing around us, and it's still consciousness. Of course, the plants can react for the energy. It's another thing. You can even talking emotions. Can affect the plants, which means there is some sort of the connection between us. Everything has a consciousness, as I said. It's just a level of it. Anyway, carry on. The soul at some point could be million years, could be billion years. It doesn't matter. It could be a year or two. It doesn't really matter. The time is not important for the soul, as a soul has no age, and there's no time for the soul. Soul will never die. So at the point when the soul feels like it's another time for another wave of the expansion, it goes into the animal. So again, those souls experiencing the first life on the 3D, they provide the body of the animal. They provide everything so the body can actually being built. But the energy who is behind the body, who is behind the controlling the body, it's a different soul. You know, this is a mechanism of serving. We all serve to each other. Everything serves to each other. So at this point, the soul possess no, the body of the animal will be rented out for the soul for the time being, whatever is the lifespan of the animal. So the soul can actually express itself through that body and collect the data through the senses, through the eyes, through the ears. It's another way of expanding for the soul, isn't it? Because that could be for the very first time. It was always very first time. So at that moment, soul, still our soul to speak, will experience the life as an animal. Again, mechanism is the same. The mechanism will be the same. And then we go, the very last time, it's about animals. Interesting thing about the animals. When the animal will be ready, when the soul who is behind the animal, it will be ready, for the next step of the evolution, which would be, incarnating up in a human's body, then we can see, and it's especially these days we can see because of the internet, when the animal is quite clever. I don't know if you know about there is a gorilla, she passed away, named Coco, and she was able to communicate with human in a sign language. So, and she was able to construct, the way she speaks. She was talking with us, talking about her feelings, about her perception of the reality. So it means she was on the very verge, on the very edge of switching. Loads of animals would provide us with such a symptoms these days. This is another term called density. I will go back to density. Let me write it down so I won't forget. All right. So the soul is experiencing now a life as a human being. And in order to make another step, the soul starts to thinking of it, what's the next step? What's the next possibility of expansion? And at that time, a soul starts to prepare itself for the jump. And because that evolution isn't like a jumping, it goes slowly. Everyone has a different speed, and it will going, we're going in a steady speed. So the first sign will be another way. A fourth density body for another body, below, above our body, would be what we call aura, what we call chakras. This is the symptom of the fourth density body, which is above us. It's the next step, because many of us will actually make a step back here. So we do have chakras. Not all of us. I want you to dig about a thing called organic portals, which are mistakenly taken as a non-human being. And they're not. They are just a being who are evolving from the animal world into the human world, and they exist here for some time, and they are not ready for another level. They're just building it up. They're just making it. They construct it, So for the body, it's not ready yet for that jump, evolutionary jump. Do you understand? So they will have a build like a free lower chakras, because they're coming from the animal world. They have it. They have an instinct. They have this power, energy power. They have a sexual power. They don't have it, so to speak, this energy, not the energy. They don't have it, spiritual things yet, because they're not building it yet. They just left the world, of pain, of existence, fighting for the life, but they're building it. That's where the actual religion is quite important, to put a seed in those souls. Then there is something else. Then there is some expansion beyond it, and there is something above us. So I think, at that point, any religion, religion is good or bad in the same way. So, but many things is coming from the fourth or even fifth density coming down here to meet these people, you know, kids, children with the elderly, and that's the problem of this world here, because it creates a huge confusion, you know, between an old soul. For the soul, so many things is so obvious and clear, and the new soul which has no idea about these things, and they too even live together, you know, they are married together, and it will create a lot of problems. It's not because, you know, one is smart and one is stupid. It's because one is older than another one. Simple. Anyway, when we are ready for another step in our evolution, you know, then our so to speak energetic body will be ready for it, you know, and it will be a matter of just leaving this body and never coming back to this one. That is the step into soul's evolution. It will not come back to this body because it won't be necessary. It will get an energetic body, which is, as I say, for those who can see us, it's a colorful auric type of the energy. This is a fourth dimensional body, and when we are there, we don't have a body. This one we do have some sort of the body yet, physical sort of the body, but it's less dense anyway. And then we coming to the fifth density world, where from our point of view we can see them here. It's the ball of the light. Fourth density, those ones a little bit above us, they can come here and we can see them as a light beings, with the shapes, humanoid shapes or not humanoid shapes, or the shapes. And then, as I said, the fifth density beings that we come here as the balls, as the orbs, that will be even higher than the fourth density, because as I say, you know, those higher can always step back into those lower in order to do something. We don't know what's the purpose of the soul, you know, coming back here, fixing something, helping something. I don't know. Soul has its own purpose. And it's again, at any step of this evolution, none of those bodies we are using is us. You have to understand that then the thing behind it, you know, that consciousness behind it, it's not the body itself. It's a soul. So yes, as I said, density. Come back to the animals. What they do, it's a jump between it's still in a three-dimensional world, but yet they jumping from the animal to the human being, and then we jump the other thing. We can you know easily see the fourth density, four-dimensional beings when we trained. Some of us are coming here already, you know, prepared for it. Some of us will have to train again, but that's the soul. And I think we stop at the soul because this is quite long. And the next thing, if there is a demand for it, I will go back in English, and I will talk about actually the source, how the universe is created, how the multi-universe exists within the same universe, as we all have one space, which is infinite space here, and there is no other infinite space. There's only one infinite space. And the trick how to make a matrix inside of the matrix and inside of the matrix, how the parallel worlds exists here. Of course, it exists here. There's nowhere else. And how the other universe exists here, and how many universes are there. There's probably, you know, an infinite number of the universes as its possibilities, but how does it exist in the same space? So if there's a demand for it, I would be glad, you know, to talk my little boring chat. So yes, you're welcome to drop me a message in the comments, and let's see. Okay, thank you guys.